Okay, we are a couple minutes past the hour, and we are going to record this so that if you have to step away and you want to revisit it at any point, you can. There are a lot of folks who wanted to be with us this evening who can't, and so we'll share a recording of this as soon as we can next week. And as always, if you have any questions after viewing the recording, please feel free to follow up with me, and we can spend some time connecting on anything that you'd like to discuss. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone for being on this evening and making time for SigEp. And I also want to welcome Chad Stegemiller, who you can't see right now, but you see his name on the screen likely, who's on our call tonight. Chad is going to be my partner during this and during future stakeholder calls. So next time you will see us is going to be in July when we host our budget and finance call, the second Wednesday of July. For those who have not heard, we'll make sure that we do get out a communication here. We want to thank Heather Matthews for 5 years, almost 5 years of work with SigEp and being a big part of the SigEp staff team, and congratulate her on her next professional steps. Heather has accepted an offer to be the Chief Communication Officer of Kappa Delta Sorority, and she'll be starting in that role next week. So we're very happy for her and her getting back to being a part of the sorority community, and are very grateful for the time that she gave SigEp. If you know Heather, you know how much she invested in the work that we do, and has been a big part of the progress that we've made and how we were able to navigate through the pandemic. Ben Ford has stepped into our marketing and communications director role, and we're going to be posting a job very soon to get our marketing and communications team back up to full strength. We'll have more to share on that soon as well. So what do Chad and I want to share this evening? Well, there's quite a bit to share. And as we mentioned on our last call, this year's budget is the first one that is built to advance the objectives of our strategic plan. So there's a lot of new things out there, some things that we've rolled out, introduced, or we've started to test, several important initiatives that we've started this year. And so we want to share an update on those initiatives with you and how those initiatives are being received and the impact that they can have on the chapter experience and on our volunteer experience. And no doubt as we do that, you're going to have some questions. As those questions pop into your mind, please put them in the Q&A box. So there's a difference between the comment box and the Q&A box. So if you could try and record those there, that'll just allow us to better manage those questions as they come in and make sure that we're able to get to all of those. If I'm able to see them as they come up, I'll try to address them as they come in. If I don't, Chad is here to make sure that we come back to them and that we're able to address as many of them as we can with the time that we have. So we'll start where we typically do, and that's with a quick refresher of our strategic plan and the areas of the plan that we're prioritizing and why we're prioritizing those areas. Then we'll dive into each of those priority areas with some updates on what we're doing, and again, the impact that those things are having, or that we hope that they have. And to be clear, as we talk about priority areas of the plan, our board prioritize certain areas not to marginalize other parts of the plan, but to ensure that we had a solid foundation to build on before venturing into new territory. And also to acknowledge that we have limitations with resources, and therefore limitations on some of the things that we can do at this time. The initial priorities or areas considered fundamental to our future success are not surprising. They're growth, volunteers, BMP, and our SigEp learning community, which you will see is substance-free facility support and environment in this plan. We're also going to add to that fundraising and foundation operations, and I'll reference that a little bit as we get through our time together today. So let's start with growth. In previous calls, we've shared some concerning trends that make a focus on growth specifically new strategies for growth critical to our future. More recent projections about this issue of enrollment suggest still a steep decline in college enrollment. And while not quite as dire as the projections of 2017, there still will be less men on campus to join SigEp and go Greek in the future. And on top of that, we're continuing to see a decline in the percentage of incoming freshmen who say there's a good chance they'll join a fraternity while in college. This is according to the survey conducted by the Higher Education Research Institute at UCLA, and they've done this survey since 1973. They have a massive amount of data, and it's been consistent in what we're able to track with the propensity to join a fraternity. As you might expect from that data point alone, rush participation on campuses has declined. And this might be a good thing, given what we know now. Not only did that statistic create greater urgency to recruit year-round and outside of rush, but it also helped us realize the other benefits of recruiting outside of rush. We found through our research with Dyad Strategies, who works with us on the Brotherhood survey that we do each year, that members motivated by things like belonging, development, and building a network of friends leads to chapters that are just all around better. They've got better GPA, better BMP implementation, better member retention. They receive more campus awards, and not surprisingly, the men recruited outside of rush more often are motivated to join for these reasons. So the inverse, therefore, is true. And the individuals who join during rush have a greater propensity to engage in risky behaviors and not quite perform quite as well. And so that's a very important thing for us to keep an eye on. Lastly, we've seen a significant decline in our total chapters and total new members recruited after our BMP alignment vote at the 2015 conclave. And we saw some additional challenges in those 2 years that are highlighted by the pandemic. So we haven't seen much change, however, in the average number of new members recruited per year, which you see is that line on the bottom of the screen. The number last fiscal year was actually just 0.3 below where we were in 2012, the 2012-2013 academic year, when we recruited more than 6,000 new members. And this underscores the importance of chapter count when we look at our size. Since our last call in October, the board has had to take some unfortunate steps of closing 4 additional chapters. 3 of these are a reminder of what happens when our chapters fail to set a standard on campus that's reflective of SigEp expectations and instead sink to the lowest common denominator and stereotypical fraternity behavior. Earlier in the semester, we had to close Arkansas Epsilon at Arkansas Tech, Texas Iota at Texas Tech, and then just last week, our board voted to close our Tennessee Alpha chapter at the University of Tennessee. And as you may experience in chapters where you're volunteering, undergraduates are still feeling the effects of the pandemic. Many of our chapter leaders today were actually recruited during the pandemic, and they weren't afforded some of the benefits of our standard transition, understanding or being exposed to the operating traditions that keep chapters running. Some of them weren't afforded opportunities to be a part of the development programs that we offer to upcoming officers and leaders. And so our Iowa Theta chapter at Northern Iowa really struggled the last few years, and that chapter chose to surrender its charter earlier this spring. So we've lost 4 chapters this year. Each of these stories is a reminder that we need to get better. And I do want to share that the staff takes that reminder personally, and it's a motivation for us to do more and get better every day. To see bigger and better results in the face of these challenges, what we're doing in growth, we're investing in a new national and chapter level growth marketing effort to increase awareness and interest in SigEp and increase the number of potential new members in our recruitment pipelines. We're also improving our sales training for our undergraduates so that they can articulate the value of the SigEp experience to potential new members in a way that resonates with this generation of college student. The hope is that we have, as a result of our marketing effort, more potential new members and a need to provide better sales training so that we can better communicate with those new members. We're going to be doing more with the Balanced Man Scholarship to support that effort. It's critical to what we do with year-round recruitment and what we do to find potential new members who are not participating in what we refer to as a fairly archaic rush process. And it also facilitates some deeper conversation with individuals who have applied for that scholarship. And then lastly, we're starting more chapters each year. This upcoming academic year, so the next one, we'll start 6 new SigEp chapters instead of what we've done for the last decade or so of starting 4. So let's talk a little bit more about growth marketing and why we're doing this. By and large, fraternities have been recruiting the same way for about a century. And for decades, we've been marketing ourselves in the same way. Flyers, tabling in the quad, waiting on rush. And potential new members, as well as their parents today, we should consider consumers. They like they like to do in other parts of their life. They're looking for opportunities and deciding how they'll spend their time and how they're going to connect with others in college. So when you think about the way people shop for things 10 years ago, it's a different landscape today entirely. In 2010 to 2015, that was an all-time peak for fraternity membership. And at that time, when, for instance, you wanted a pair of sneakers, people drove to the mall, they parked, they went inside, they went into the store, they tried on sneakers, and they bought sneakers at the store. Well, what do we know about malls? The ones that didn't change are dying, and many are empty and struggling to survive. And the ones that are succeeding are the ones that actually evolved the consumer experience entirely, shifting their purpose and how they're bringing people to the mall. Today, consumers in general are inundated with direct and subtle marketing. And how do they buy their shoes? Well, they follow their favorite athletes today, and they see what shoes they're wearing. They see and hear from their friends. They look at what influencers are doing on social media feeds. It's different. And for far too long, fraternities have behaved like malls. We've expected potential new members to find us, to sign up for recruitment, to just show up at the red door seeking SigEp membership. So this is an attempt to bring the red door to potential new members and to actually do some recruiting, not waiting for people to come to us. In 2023, that means doing more online and on social media and meeting our potential new members where they are. So last year, we engaged a marketing agency to partner with our team at headquarters and with volunteers that are on our growth committee. We conduct market research with key stakeholders to learn more about what upcoming potential new members need, what they want, and what would resonate with them best. We engage them in an effort to distill the SigEp message into a concise, punchy mantra and a set of core messages, making our pitch salient and easy for chapters to market and use. We engage them to develop a strategy for both chapter level and national marketing, specifically focused on recruitment and increasing the interest in the SigEp experience and the general awareness that people have of SigEp in our target market. Well, we've completed our work in the first 2 areas, and we are now working on that third point of developing strategies and testing. At the national level, we're going to be driving potential new member leads to chapters through search engine optimization and paid ads, creating a larger potential new member pipeline for our chapters to recruit year-round. And at the chapter level, we'll be helping chapters develop a marketing plan, utilize customizable, easy-to-use resources and templates to push both organic and paid content to potential new members with the intention of driving leads. So this spring and summer, we've started to pilot this approach with 22 chapters. These represent a cross-section of our chapters, coast to coast, public schools and private schools, chapters of different sizes and recruiting strengths, those who recruit year-round and those who will recruit at with different styles and timing based on university hosted recruitment requirements, et cetera. These chapters were, again, invited to pilot our marketing program so that we can test the strategy and the tactics that we use with a wide array of our chapters and help us really understand the potential benefit of this effort when we have chapters that opt in and are committed to the work. So to be clear, we did reach out to these groups and they opted in and said, yes, we want to do that. We're going to do the work and be committed to this effort. So over the past 2 months, the vice presidents of communication at these 22 chapters have been working closely with our director of digital media, Guillermo Flores, who you see on the screen here, to learn how to build a comprehensive marketing plan and to prepare for a focused recruitment marketing effort moving forward. They've each completed 4 sessions that will build on each other. So we've started with creating a foundation for marketing. What is this pilot all about? We're moving toward a growth mindset. What your chapter will get out of focused marketing, enhancing your chapter's web presence, social media, account management, collaboration between officers and volunteers. There's a lot here to lay a foundation. Then we moved on to creating a content calendar. So developing a month-by-month content calendar with mini campaigns that reinforce raise your bar as the core message and our SigEp brand points. Then we moved on to raise your bar recruitment campaign, how to use that mantra, what future college men are looking for in their experience and how to market to them. Simple messaging to sell the SigEp value proposition and the experience, campaign core messages and how to run a campaign, tools and how to customize that for those tools for your campus. And then lastly, we had a building on your recruitment campaign session that talked about how to build your recruitment focused marketing plan and generate those leads that we've been talking about, including in that conversation, how to utilize a chapter toolkit with resources around using organic and paid social media ads and how to prepare for that, how to target, how to incorporate the BMS and other recruitment efforts into our marketing plan. So now our vice presidents of communication are moving into drafting their marketing plan. And throughout this month, they're going to be meeting one-on-one with Guillermo and getting feedback and beginning to implement their specific recruitment campaigns and utilizing email, social media, paid ads, in-person marketing, and more. And they're even, I think this is a really exciting part because our undergraduates always ask for this. They're even providing feedback to each other and collaborating as their content goes out and as they try new things. And that's been a really interesting and neat thing to see because we haven't really had to spark too much of that interaction. They're naturally wanting to do that. So Guillermo is going to continue to meet with each of them throughout the summer and fall to continue that education and help them problem solve and ensure that we're implementing and doing the things that will make this effort as successful as possible. Our vice presidents of communication, I think it's safe to say they're embracing this education and the resources throughout the spring. They've begun to use the raise your bar messaging in their communications. And again, we're early, but they're actively utilizing the resources from our toolkit and trying to make them their own. So we have a few examples on the screen of some of the early things that have been used. And you see the chapters are starting to tell the SigEp story in a new way and looking to build engagement and enthusiasm in new ways. And so that's a nice thing to see very early in this effort of testing and implementing. They're also actively linking what they do to interest and referral forms on their chapter sites. So again, the chapter sites that we've helped them build and that are accessible via SigEp, so that potential new members can express interest and that we begin to drive leads, which is, again, one of the goals of this effort. Our Indiana Delta chapter at Indiana State, actually, and this is very early on, so great to see, they drove 12 new leads just last week with their marketing messages on social media, and that's a rare thing to see in April at Indiana State. So it's been really neat to see that and how they're continuing to build their recruitment pipeline. Now they have to act on those in their recruitment pipeline. And you can see this screen in my SigEp that we've built out a process that allows them to manage their potential new members, understand who's come in as leads, know when they've made initial contact and move them over in the pipeline, and to continue to interact with those individuals until they're extended a bid or exhausted and removed from the pipeline. So these are things that you would, very simplified, but you would see in an actual business setting of lead management, marketing leading to leads, and then being able to utilize sales and work with a sales team to move your potential new members to a point of joining your chapter. And again, so this is just the preliminary impact of what a larger implementation will look like and what we're going to see in the summer and early fall as chapters go into more focused recruiting. Along the way, we're going to be providing support as well as measuring the success of the campaign, looking at, again, are we increasing the number of leads that come in through my SigEp? Are we converting those leads to new members? And as we do that, we're going to be assessing or evaluating the strategies, the tools, the coaching, and any planning that we do for better future implementation, always looking to improve. In the fall, we're going to tweak any material and prepare communication and curriculum for what we'll call a full launch or more advanced launch at Carlson's next year, so 2024. All of our vice presidents of communication, as well as vice presidents of recruitment and volunteers, will receive access to this education and the materials and be able to ramp up on their own. And after our testing, chapters are going to be able to opt in for coaching and implementation support, similar to what I just described for those 22 chapters that Guillermo is working with. And so they'll get that coaching in addition to receiving the toolkits and the resources that we've referenced generally this evening. All of this work at the chapter level is going to be complemented by a national campaign where we'll target search engine optimization and content marketing. Right now, when you search fraternities, some of you may be doing that, but there's not really much there that describes the value add experience that we can offer. And so we're going to be running dynamic ads through social media channels as well, utilizing YouTube to drive potential new members to a new Raise Your Bar landing page that you get a sneak peek at on the screen here, with engaging video and our core messages, and again, an interest form that can help us drive leads to chapters. All leads will go to the chapter's lead pipeline in my SigEp, like the one that I just mentioned earlier for Indiana Delta. So again, moving on here at Conclave, we've planned some educational breakouts about the Raise Your Bar campaign and how we're doing with our results so far. Guillermo is going to be on site to meet with officers and volunteers who are interested. We'll have Raise Your Bar merchandise available in the SigEp store. And I'm sure we're going to be able to talk about more as we continue our Conclave planning. At that time at Conclave, if you're a chapter that typically does a bulk of your recruiting in early spring, we're also going to have the opportunity to opt in for coaching this fall. And you'll be hearing more about that as we get closer to the fall term. So again, this is all about changing our growth and recruitment mindset. It's about giving chapters the tools and the training to confidently go out and share SigEp in a compelling and relevant way to young men today. young men who are different than previous generations. And so we look forward to sharing more at Conclave and talking more about the potential for this approach to recruitment. Okay, that was a lot on this particular topic. And to build on that or complement the implementation of the marketing effort, I mentioned earlier, we're going to be providing more and better sales training and doing more of that for our chapters. And this means training regional directors to more effectively teach sales and help chapters align their marketing efforts with their recruitment pitch and their approach. This means teaching chapters how to respond to the influx of leads that they should be receiving from their marketing efforts and how to manage a potential new member pipeline with hopefully a lot of names in it, while still having quality interactions that create greater interest in SigEp and allow us to grow the number of new members each year and reach levels of success that we haven't experienced before. This also means elevating the quality of sales training at Carlson and the VP of recruitment track and recruiting volunteers with the skill sets to provide ongoing support and training to our chapters. And whether we're talking about marketing, sales, and year-round recruiting or BMS implementation, our goal is to help chapters and their volunteers see their progress, track their activities transparently on SigEp, so that we can celebrate achievements and have accountability conversations when those are necessary. So again, that's why we have things like this pipeline built in SigEp, and why we'll have other things that create greater transparency around marketing and around recruitment and around membership in general, so that we can work together transparently, undergrads with volunteers, chapters with staff, et cetera, because the transparency is going to create urgency and allow us all to act and execute at a high level. And so we're excited about where this can go. Lastly, before we leave growth, we talked about our declining chapter count and the need to reverse that trend. Our 4 expansion sites this year are concluding their spring recruitment efforts. So we've got the 4 campuses that we went to this year and their new member count right below them. Texas A&M and Boise State, our fall sites, have experienced the most success of any expansion effort that we've had in almost 6 years. That's been really exciting to see. Our spring expansions at Jacksonville State and Western Michigan are finishing their first semester. And while they're off to a slower start, we're confident that they're going to see great success next fall because we approached that spring start knowing that we're going to have to invest in them in the fall and the entire next academic year. So we're excited about what they're going to be able to do and the pace that they're going to hit to charter. We're going to be starting 6 new chapters next year. Those 6 campuses are now on the screen. Our fall sites are going to be Michigan, Oregon, and Illinois. And in the spring, we're going to be returning to Tampa, UNC Charlotte, and East Carolina. Our intent is to have 6 strong expansions each year for the foreseeable future. Dale, I caught that one. Who runs the expansion effort? That is Matt Dutcher right now. Adrian Galera is going to be doing it next year. All right, volunteers, if we can go there. Volunteers are essential to our success in every area of the strategic plan. So it's critical that we recruit more dedicated alumni and friends to coach our undergraduates, to guide our chapters, and to share their expertise. That is why we set a very ambitious goal of engaging more than 15,000 volunteers in various parts of the SigEp experience. For the last few years, we've been stuck at roughly what you see in quarters 1 and 2 on the screen, recruiting a similar number of volunteers each quarter, each semester, each year. We've done some things earlier, I'll say in 2022, that have teed us up for some things that we've tried in the first quarter of 2023. So we increased the number of districts and district governors to 39. we've hired more experienced people to join our volunteer services team. And we started to build the infrastructure in our database to launch volunteer recruitment campaigns. So this February, we tried something new in hopes of seeing much larger numbers. We launched chapter-specific volunteer recruitment campaigns for about 40-ish, I think 42 chapters or ABCs right now, again, who opted into that effort. That was started in mid-February. Relative to prior performance, the results have been really promising. So you see that spike in quarter three relative to what we did last year in quarter three. We've launched these campaigns in waves, with the third round of outreach just concluding a few days ago. So for AVCs that were participating in this effort, the outreach includes an initial email customized to the chapter outlining the importance of volunteering and inviting the recipient to complete a volunteer interest form. A follow-up is sent several days later, and through the first three waves, about 57,000 alumni have been contacted and invited to volunteer for their home chapter or a chapter within easy driving distance of their location. So we looked at the geographic distance from a chapter. This outreach yielded so far 500 new volunteer leads, and that's just in the last 2 months or 10 weeks alone. So for perspective, we generated more volunteer leads in the last 10 weeks than we did in all of 2022, the entire calendar year. Our district governors and our volunteer services and chapter services teams on staff have followed up relentlessly with leads as they have come in, and more recruitment waves are planned for the second half of the calendar year. In total, we have recruited 904 new volunteers so far this fiscal year. If we get to 1,000 new volunteers, that would be a huge milestone for us, and I think an indication that we should keep doing and iteratively improving this strategy. But as you know, there is also a lot of work to do after you've recruited a new volunteer. So I want to say thank you to our volunteer development committee for the work that they've done. We were able to pilot a new training curriculum at our Carlson Leadership Academies this year, and they've been further developed into an interactive online program that you get a little bit of a peek at on the screen here. The goal is to create a universal volunteer onboarding curriculum that can be completed or reviewed at any time, and then complemented by in-person or real touches from staff and volunteers. A pilot is now live on SigEp, and anyone on the call tonight with a SigEp account can go to the modules and see them if they're interested. We've also refreshed role-based resources for each of the mentor roles and AVC positions. Those have been co-written by volunteers currently serving in the role being addressed. And so we're continuing to do those. More of them are going to be available soon. And as we do that, we're going to continue to develop and update online learning and online learning opportunities and resources for volunteers so that they can access those anywhere at any time from a variety of devices at their convenience. At Conclave this summer, we'll be focusing on more advanced training topics than what you saw at Carlson. These in-person sessions are going to focus on specific aspects of chapter and AVC operations and provide ideas on how to take those to the next level. There will also be sessions focused on subjects like mental health and trends that we're seeing in higher education. We'll also have sessions designed to enable volunteers to better relate to, understand, and serve young men in the chapter today. Again, a different generation of college student. And some alumni, I know, they just don't have the ability to volunteer. But they likely want to stay connected to SigEp in some way and to their home chapter specifically. that is why we launched the alumni communication program this year. An alumnus's strongest connection to SigEp is often to his chapter. It's where he built his bonds of brotherhood, where he benefited from mentors and from coaching, where he developed leadership skills and prepared for his life after college. And through regular and relevant communication with alumni, SigEp and our AVCs, we hope can re-engage many of our alumni who are no longer connected to SigEp, and we can build affinity and strengthen affinity over time. If an alumnus feels connected, he's more likely to volunteer, to share his talents, or to donate to local initiatives and more. So this is extremely important. AVCs who sign on to the alumni communication program will mail and email 2 newsletters per year, 1 alumni bio update, and have 1 appeal per year. This assists them with providing the regular communication they need, gaining regular contact information, updates from alumni, getting alumni news stories to share with brothers, and generally just making a habit of annual fundraising solicitations and stewardship practices that can be used to benefit the undergraduate experience. So far, 12 AVCs have enrolled in the program this spring. If you aren't one of these 12 and you're interested, please reach out to me, let me know. I'll contact you and share more details on the program. We think every AVC should be doing this, should be in the habit of communicating with alumni and doing these things, updating contact information, building a habit of giving to a chapter. We all join because of relationships, and this is the stuff that keeps those relationships going. So I hope this is something that grows and something that becomes just the norm in SigEp in our AVCs. So I'm going to move on to the Balanced Man program and our third priority area that I mentioned earlier. Other than a push in 2015 to align all of our chapters under the BMP and totally eliminate pledging programs, it's been about 30 years since we've done any meaningful reevaluation of the Balanced Man program. And it's safe to say that a lot has changed since then. Student affairs has evolved tremendously, and things like orientation programs that are well developed today were just in their infancy 30 years ago. Today's undergraduate men are very different. Gen Z college students, they have different needs. They learn differently. They're digital natives. They come from more diverse backgrounds. They're more likely to be paying for their own college and for their own fraternity experience, for that matter, than previous generations. Today, the BMP is referred to generally as the cornerstone of the SigEp experience. But many of all of our undergraduates weren't even alive when this program was conceptualized and launched. And unfortunately, the program is still not understood and embraced by our chapters the way we would like. It's safe to assume and maybe honest, based on the data that we have, that less than half of our chapters are running the program well by having all 4 challenges and good rituals. It's very different from chapter to chapter as well, the program is. And while personalization is a necessity, the massive amount of customization from campus to campus makes servicing the BMP and supporting the BMP more difficult. It makes training volunteers a little bit more difficult. It makes promoting and marketing the program near impossible. As we alluded to earlier, there are too few volunteers as well supporting the implementation, and asking an 18 to 22-year-old to guide their own development in areas that they're unfamiliar with is a strategy that is doomed to failure. Volunteers are absolutely critical to this program's success. For those of us on the call who likely understand the BMP better than most, it is a point of pride, I know, and one of the things that makes SigEp different. And I think that we would all agree that today's student needs the personal development and the real life skill development that is offered through the BMP now more than ever. These are outcomes and things that we're just uniquely positioned to provide, given the role that we play outside of the classroom. So I think the question that we're asking ourselves now is how can we evolve our signature program to best meet the needs of today's student? And at each of our chapters, how can we create more and more relevant development opportunities for all of our members at the chapter level? How can we simplify what is currently perceived to be a complex and burdensome program? How can we better engage alumni and volunteers to deliver quality programming and improve retention of undergraduate members, to improve chapter culture, and to create a more welcoming environment for campus stakeholders, professors, student affairs staff? How do we get the buy-in of our SigEp chapters and overcome the adoption and reputational issues that are currently plaguing the BMP, and achieve something that our chapters would really rally around and be passionate about? I think we've got some work to do to answer all of these questions. As you may have seen, if you were at a Carlson Academy earlier this year, we had undergraduate focus groups providing feedback on the BMP and our ritual. We had some additional focus groups that we convened via Zoom before Carlson. Those included volunteers and staff and other groups of undergraduate chapter leaders. And those focus groups are helping us consider how to best adapt a BMP to answer some of the questions that I just posed, which is not exhaustive. We're going to continue to have conversations over the next few months with the goal of being able to share some details on what we can test next academic year after Conclave with a limited group of chapters, while continuing to gather insights on what works and what it will take to effectively scale this type of experience, one that's relevant to all of our chapters, and be good coast to coast across the board with what is our cornerstone program. The experience that is being discussed currently, some of the initial answers we've received to the questions that I posed, those will no doubt require resources that we don't have currently. So to support this and other initiatives that are vital to our future, we've made some important investments in recruiting an experienced fundraising team and strengthening our educational foundation's operations, to build a major gifts program and foster a culture of philanthropy in SigEp that makes answering these questions and acting on those answers a lot easier. And so I'm excited about where this is going to go. And whether you're volunteering or whether you're donating to what the solution is, or doing both, we're all grateful for the role that you play in allowing us to expand the reach, frankly, of what we're able to do with SigEp. We touch a lot of people through regional and national programs, and we need to do more at the chapter level to reach all of our members with a promise of giving them essential skills that are going to be used after graduation for their life. So I'm going to move on to SigEp Learning Communities, the fourth of those priority areas that we mentioned earlier. And so this is moving from experiences, if you will, to the environments section of the strategic plan. We've had 47 chapters submit applications for SigEp Learning Community accreditation or reaccreditation so far this year. As determined by the board, chapters must be a SigEp Learning Community in order to be eligible for a Buchanan Cup. This policy was implemented for the first time for this conclave, and it has led to a encouraging influx of chapters asking about and applying to be an accredited SigEp Learning Community. And it's fueled a lot of great conversations about what it takes to improve your chapter experience and take your chapter to the next level. In total, 79 of our chapters right now are accredited SigEp Learning Communities, and another 11 are conditionally accredited by our committee of volunteers that runs this accreditation review. The fact that about 45% of our chapters are SigEp learning communities, I think, is impressive, and it shows how committed many of our brothers and volunteers are to providing a different fraternity experience, likely what is very different on their respective campus. 42 campuses or chapters have gained full accreditation since just January of those 47 that I mentioned earlier. So again, it's an impressive pace and something that we're not used to, but we've seen grown because we've really leaned into growing the program. So I'm grateful. The staff is grateful. The board is grateful. I know our district governors are grateful. Our undergraduates are grateful for all of the volunteers who support these chapters. And I want to draw special attention to our faculty fellows who add an invaluable part or contribution to what makes the SigEp learning community experience so great and what makes the SigEp living learning experience possible. This year, 71 new faculty fellows started supporting a SigEp chapter, and we now have 169 total faculty fellows volunteering for SigEp at 127 chapters. That's an incredible milestone and well beyond anything that we saw pre-pandemic. As we've shared in prior volunteer and donor communications, and I hope you've seen those, research on the student experience shows that students who participate in learning communities see higher academic achievement, see greater satisfaction with their college experience, see better communication and critical thinking skills. They've greater ability to navigate between academic and social settings. They're also more likely to graduate and remain a fraternity member throughout college. This tells us that we can't let our foot up off the gas. If you're wondering, just applying for accreditation is beneficial to chapters who are serious about improving. Chapters who apply for accreditation, regardless of the outcome, they receive feedback from a committee of volunteers who are reviewing that application. And those volunteers are very specific about what they think the chapter can do to improve their operations, their programming, and generally the value of the experience that are offered to young men on that campus. Those chapters that are accredited and have no safety incidents or claims over the prior 2 calendar years also receive the financial benefit of Tier 1 insurance fees for our spring insurance and member safety bill. And when you're at that level of performance, when you're a SigEp learning community and you're living our values and you're not seeing any safety concerns or incidents or claims, you're a chapter that's putting it all together. And it's amazing to see what that experience looks like and to hear the stories that come out of that kind of chapter. And I'm proud to see, as I hope that you are, so many of our chapters that are committed to doing SigEp the right way and leading on their campus like this, and even challenging other fraternities on their campus to follow in their footsteps and be different. And since we're talking about finances a little bit, I want to talk a little bit about what chapters can expect financially in the upcoming year regarding our insurance renewal process, and then there are a couple of important things to share there. So number one, for our fall programs and services bill, the higher education price index is something that we keep an eye on because it's what we use to determine the increase in the per man fee of the fall programs and services bill. That number was up over 5% this year. According to our conclave resolution, the percentage increase cannot exceed 4%. So that 4% change is going to be the change that you see next fall when you receive the fall bill on the per man basis. That's going to be the percentage change in the per man fee. So number two, a point that's relevant to our spring bill, our insurance, our general liability insurance renewal is upcoming. We're scheduled to go see our insurance provider next month, present to them on all the great things that we're doing, why they should continue to insure us, and why they should limit any premium increase because we've got limited resources, and putting more in a premium takes away from the things that we know work. In the past, we've been very proud of and talked about this 7-year streak of no losses. Well, unfortunately, that has come to an end. But I want to be clear. I think our insurance provider continues to point other fraternities to SigEp and say what we're doing is the model that needs to be followed. But unfortunately, due to the actions of some chapters, that streak of no claims has come to an end, and we're likely going to see a premium increase this spring. We will do everything that we can financially to keep that increase manageable for our chapters, but that also may come at the cost of reallocating some of our limited resources away from other things. But we don't want to price people out of the SigEp experience. We've informed chapters that they should budget for, as they think about their budget for next year, that they should budget for a 20% increase in the spring bill to account for a premium hike that we'll likely see, but we don't know the details there, and we're going to communicate as much as we can, as soon as we can. When we know more, we'll share it. And I think we remain optimistic that that's a high number, and that we're not going to exceed what that is. I do hope that we come in well below that, obviously, but we'll share as much as we can, as soon as we can. I think this is also just a reminder that we've got to remain committed to the things that allowed us to celebrate a 0% loss run for 7 years to begin with. Recruiting the right people the right way, engaging more volunteer coaches and mentors to guide chapter leaders, really committing to the B&P and doing something that is likely the antithesis of what is the norm on a campus: continuous development, equal rights and responsibilities, accountability, mentorship, living our ritual, committing to those tenets of the program, and remaining steadfast in our implementation of substance-free facilities and the SigEp learning community. After the board adopts the fraternity budget, we're going to be holding a call the second Wednesday in January to walk through that budget with you and let you know what to expect for the 2023-2024 school year, and answer any questions that you may have as we present that information to you. So before we wrap up, I do want to provide a couple of quick updates on programs and events. We saw a sharp increase in Carlson participation this year, which was great. We're trying to get the program back to what it was while continuing to make it better. And we expect that we will continue to see participation increase as we invest more in that experience and offer more opportunities for undergraduates and volunteers to participate in the program. And as we open more chapters, frankly, and have more undergraduates that are members of SigEp, we're likely going to see fewer programs in 2024. And we intend to share those cities and dates with you prior to conclave. We're trying to wrap up a few things in contract negotiation, but we're well ahead of where we have been in prior years. And so we hope to be able to share that information with you soon. By decreasing the number of programs, we've taken into consideration what we want the average size of a Carlson to be, what we want the Saturday meal function to feel like. We've taken into consideration the undergraduate to facilitator ratio and tried not to exceed the number that we think is extreme and that allows for good participation, interaction between officers in a session or track, and doesn't stress the undergrads with additional drive time or travel time. Although I say that, I know that anyone in the Northwest is just laughing because there's only so much we can do. And that's something that we just continue to wrestle with every year. But I also like to draw some special attention to the number of undergraduates that have applied to the Ruck Leadership Institute. That's a really high number. It's great to see such interest in that leadership program that again, we've worked to grow and recover from after a pandemic. We're going to max out at 160 scholars this year. And again, I hope over time, back to my reference about fundraising and wanting to do more for undergraduates, hope we're able to get to a place at some point in the future where we can accommodate every single chapter with a Ruck Scholar opportunity. That would be an exciting place to get to. Lastly, Conclave. As we close, I hope to see many of you on the call tonight at the Grand Chapter Conclave, our 58th Grand Chapter Conclave in San Antonio, Texas, this August 2nd through 6th. Please go to sigep.org to register. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and we'll help you get registered. With that said, again, thank you everyone for the work that you do as a volunteer. We're going to open it up to questions right now. And so Chad, I don't know if you want to jump on and help us navigate through what's on the screen here.
Yeah, absolutely.
While I drink water.
So we're going to circle. Yeah. So I think the first question that popped up, and we'll go in order of kind of what you just talked about there. Will there be any access for folks to join conclave sessions remotely this year? I know that was something that we were able to do in Denver, with the pandemic still, full swing or at least waning at that point. Do you know if there are plans this year to have remote access for folks who aren't able to make it to Houston, or excuse me, to San Antonio? Yeah, so we want to do that. We're discussing right now how we best do that and for what sessions we would do that. Last time was a learning opportunity for us. There were some sessions that were stopped or shut down because of music that was being played in the background. So we learned a thing or two, and we've engaged Sean Solachik, an alumnus out on the West Coast there from USC, to help us as an executive producer, as you will. He's got a lot of experience doing this, and we've got a great conclave implementation team that we hope to engage. And I think the other thing going for us is that we're going to be able to put this conclave together with a little more than a 3-month or 2-month runway. So I hope that we're able to do that and address some of the things that we weren't able to do at the last conclave in 21. Next question was from Shane Lay. Shane, going back to RLC, SLC programming, how do we measure and track the effectiveness of those programs, and how do we prevent that from becoming just a checkbox activity for chapters?
Yeah, so thanks to, and Shane, you're going to love this, thanks to how dynamic Salesforce is, we have identified what we're referring to as lead and lag measures. And so with each of the things that we focus on, we have certain things that we will track, that we want to move. And then, so for the SLC or BMP, we're looking at things that are applications, accreditations, new faculty members as faculty fellows, types of programming that is being done, the percentage of membership that's participating in program, if we're able to track that with chapters using the app. And then we look at outputs or outcomes as well that are captured in our annual Brotherhood survey, as well as things that we track in-house, GPA, member retention, and through a combination of what we track in-house and what we capture in the dyad survey, we're able to look at inputs and outputs that say, hey, doing these things lead to those things. That's SigEp specific because of what we're a part of with a dyad survey. That survey is used across more than a dozen fraternities and sororities. And so we're actually able to expand a reference point to a lot of undergraduates and see how we compare in SigEp to what other fraternities are doing as well. So it's not just looking at chapters to a national average in SigEp, it's looking at chapters in SigEp to an average of SigEp to an average of what's happening in other fraternities as well. I hope that answers your question, Shane.
Brian, going back to the raise your bar concept, what steps is SigEp taking to potentially protect that phrase or that term, especially when it ties in with our organization?
It's actually being discussed with the marketing firm that we worked with and attorneys right now. It's a fairly commonly used phrase. So we're talking right now at what way we can protect it or at least keep it from being misused. That's about as much as I can give you, Steve. After we pay a few more hourly fees, I should have more.
Brian, you talked a little bit about, or a lot actually, about changes coming with the Balance Band program. One feature of the Balance Band program is the BMP app that chapters can use to manage that program. Can you talk a little bit about changes that are potentially coming along in that piece of the tool, of the actual app and changes that potentially could be happening there, or will there be changes as this renewal of the program happens?
Yeah, so I think there's absolutely going to be changes to the app and even a renaming of it. Hindsight being 2020, we rolled it out too soon, and that really affected the way that it was received as we worked through a lot of bugs and functionality issues. The number of requests for changes to the app has slowed down almost entirely. But I think we still face the fundamental issue of, do people really want to do the BMP? And this is where I may have a disagreement with some people who are on the call. We get a lot of feedback about the app. My feeling is, while there's a lot of ways to improve the app is built to facilitate the BMP as it exists today. And if people have really challenges with the app, they may have frustrations with the amount of time it takes to do things, but that's because there is a certain amount of administrative work that has to go into the BMP to build the program and administer the program for brothers. And so I think there's a buy-in issue across the board. And I mentioned that when I was giving my BMP comments. If you're really against the app, you probably really struggle to embrace all aspects of the BMP as well. And that may be the underlying issue. And so I hope by going through and doing the things that we've talked about on this call, that we take the time to bring people along and not rush. What we absolutely have to achieve, regardless of where we land, is that we have chapters who are excited about where we're going, who raise their hand and say, I'm going to do that. And I want to do it. I'm excited to do it. It's why I'm here. And I want all my other brothers and other chapters to do it as well. And when we have that type of relationship with the BMP, I think we're going to be in a much better place. But to tie it back to the app, technology is changing fast. I think we're going to look for something that's much more simple, easier to administer, probably something that is a little bit more out of the box, and something that's also synced to my SigEp, because we want that to be a jumping off point for everything that we do. A custom build it's just not going to work, and it's going to get too clumsy. I do see a question here
Staying in the tech
BMP, Chad, as I do see Chuck Everly here. Chuck, the answer to your question is yes. We're going to be looking for opportunities to receive grants from government sources and the other foundations that invest or want to invest in doing these things that we're talking about doing in the BMP. So where some of the conversation has led us so far is, I mentioned greater focus earlier. So let's really agree on the things that we're going to focus on or really lean into in this Balance Band program. The 4 things that keep coming up are leadership development, career preparedness, sound mind or mental health, and sound body, physical health. And
anything that we do is going to land under one of those 4 learning areas, and that we get very specific with the competencies that we're trying to develop in young men in each of those 4 areas, and remain true to those competencies. We have a tendency in SigEp to always add on and not remove things. And one of the most important things we do with any renovation of the BMP is going to be remaining focused and committed to the program that we want to see rolled out, and not allowing it to get unwieldy. That brings about all kinds of other frustrations and limits the success that we want to see.
Brian, you talked about one potential or one update coming to my SigEp earlier when you talked about the volunteer education piece. Any other updates on the pipeline or on the roadmap for that tool for my SigEp that our volunteers or our chapters could be on the lookout for?
So this isn't going to be soon, but I think the BMP is something to keep an eye on. And I think the other thing that would be a shorter term enhancement is the things that we track and make available to officers so that they can see the progress. I talked a little bit about the importance of transparency earlier. And so it's going to be really, I think, important as we try to do these new things that we've talked about launching or testing tonight. It's going to be important for us to provide a level of transparency and understand what we're doing and the results that are achieved as a result of that work. We want to give officers and volunteers the ability to say, okay, well, I've done these things. This is how we're performing and achieving as a result. There needs to be more celebration when we're doing the things we need to do. And there probably needs to be a little bit more accountability and tough conversation when we're not. And I think we owe it to our undergraduates in a day where it's difficult to have honest, candid conversation. We owe it to them to start practicing that type of candid conversation that will inevitably exist in a workplace and allow you to thrive in a workplace if you're able to talk about things that involve measure of accountability. So that will be something that we want to see added to or enhanced in my SigEp. One of the things that we've just done recently as well is integrate my SigEp and the data we track there and awards applications. I don't know that we've gotten through all of the awards at this point, so that some things will just automatically sync or be uploaded to a form, but it's a place that we want to get to, so that any award or application or nomination form becomes a simpler thing to complete. Where do you want to go, Chad?
The one there at the bottom of our list. If you could just give a quick overview on fundraising. I think this is the first one of these calls that we've had since Founders Day of Giving, and obviously there's a lot of stuff that's potentially happened since then.
Yes. And if you give me 1 second, I'm going to be able to pull up how we're doing in real time. So we are about $120,000 shy of where we finished last year. We've got, call it 2.5 months of time left in the fiscal year. Last fiscal year, we raised $140,000 over the last 2 months. And you see a little bit of surge at fiscal year end, which for us is June, obviously. So we're on pace to slightly exceed last year. And
and continue to build on the success of a historic Founders Day. One of the things that we also want to keep an eye on is, and I've got too many things open right now, is how many donors are participating in Founders Day, or how many donors do we have, unique donors do we have in a given fiscal year. So we are still about 600 annual fund donors behind where we were last year. But we are about the same with the number of donors who have given a restricted gift year to year. We'll likely come in right at or slightly above where we finished last year with annual fund donors. You just see a surge at year end when we do our last round of direct mail and digital mail pieces. And we have people who work the phone on behalf of the foundation, and call people who gave last year but haven't given yet this year. So to sum it all up, we're going to end slightly ahead this year of where we ended last year. And the other thing to keep into consideration when we think about fiscal health is, in this year, we're in a slightly different position than where we were in previous years, because we're actually able to see some sort of return on cash that is sitting in foundation accounts. The rise of interest rates, short-term rates in particular, we're going to see some sort of return on cash that's sitting there, and that's going to be helpful to financing the operation of the foundation. And I don't want to say that it makes up for the increase in the insurance premium or anything like that, but I think it's a nice thing to have at a time where you're trying to do more as an organization. I see a note there about ABC Investment Fund at SCNH, though, Chad, I don't know that I see a question there.
There was no question there. That was just more stuff for that last one, in case you were looking for something to put on there.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's our last question we have in there to address at this point, Brian.
Okay, I do see Ed Hawley's comment here, and I do have your email in my inbox, Ed. I'm going to make sure that we connect at Conclave. I look forward to seeing you in San Antonio. And Chuck Everly, I hope I'm able to see you in San Antonio as well. I feel like Conclave's a reunion for us, and wish that we got to see each other more often than that. But thank you for your comments and being with us tonight. Chris Yergis, I see your question here about partnerships with national fraternities or sororities. Interesting enough, I will be traveling to Atlanta tomorrow to meet with 3 executive directors who I think are like-minded to SigEp. That conversation is going to be focused on the world of insurance and what we're all doing to navigate through that world, and what we're planning to do with new initiatives given the change or projected change in enrollment, and other ways that we could partner to better support our chapters on campuses where we have a shared presence. On the issue of the NIC, I continue to feel no value. I'll leave it there. Mike, we're going to follow up with you specifically about Ohio ADA. So I want to make sure that members of our chapter services team reach out to you. We can schedule a call and talk about what happened there. Steve, thanks. We have fun doing this. I wish it was a conversation, though. It's just tough to manage all the people on a call with everyone having the ability to talk. But I'll see you in San Antonio too. Thanks for what you do. Eddie, yes, we're gonna be using leads to
push people to apply for the BMS. Both the BMS and what we're doing with growth marketing they're all going to funnel to the same place. But there's going to be opportunities for us to piggyback one to advance the other. Yes. And we will be advising chapters to do that. As I mentioned earlier, just the application and the interview process, it allows us to have deeper conversations with individuals. So we will absolutely want to see that happening and use that as a good recruitment tool. Ron, thanks for joining us tonight. Good to see you, or see you on here. And thanks for the questions as well. Mike Dugan, how does life after college play in the strategic plan? Life after college is a part of that career preparedness strategic area, one of the 9. So it is in there. I think what we are talking about right now is you've got your life after college, an in-person regional program. You've got career coaching that is virtual, but can be in person, that can have a wider reach and be more frequent, and engage a lot of alumni who just don't have the time to be a chapter counselor or a recruitment mentor. And then that third bucket is how can we implement or incorporate career preparedness into the Balanced Man program. And so with what we'd love to be able to do is have more of those life after colleges. I mentioned limited resources. We're very fortunate to have the life after college that we currently offer almost entirely subsidized by SWBC, the company that Charlie Amato and Gary Dudley, our 2 brothers from Sam Houston State, have started and grown together. They make life after college possible today. In order for us to continue to do that, we're continuing to rely on their support to do more of them. We're going to need to raise more money. We tried, and this is in full transparency, we tried to charge for the program this year to see if we could do another one. As soon as we took down the registration fee, the registration skyrocketed. And we got back to registration numbers that we were anticipating. So I think we found that to be a very interesting thing that occurred with life after college this year. And I think it underscores the importance of fundraising to be able to support programs like that. Chris Jurgis, I see you're continuing to deposit a few questions in here. An institution that you see as a worthy rival that we can use to grow from, and who would that potentially be? I don't have a good answer to that right now. I think what we have done historically, which you can say may have varying degrees of success, has been to talk generally about a frat boy stereotype, and how we avoid that. Unfortunately, there may be some specific organizations that are more prone to those behaviors than others. The next few years, as you see us get closer to that enrollment cliff, and as a result, we'll likely see universities implement policies that protect certain things that they do. And we've already started to see a change in housing policies, and universities starting to protect dorm space and making sure that they're at capacity in their dorms, and mandating more years living on campus or living in a collegiate dorm. So
it'll be interesting to see how our undergraduates, our chapters, our ABCs respond to that. And if that actually helps answer some of this question. But no doubt, we absolutely need something to rally around and to have us be a unifying force that brings us together and keeps us committed to a common vision. I see your other question here, Chris, with a renewed focus on marketing strategies. How are we protecting ourselves from falling back on only talking about features and benefits and not sounding like a used car salesman and keeping our core purpose at the front of our messaging? This is going to be how we implement the strategies. And I know I talked in maybe general business like terms tonight. Those are not going to be the same. That's not going to be the same vernacular that we would use in the work that we do with undergraduates. It's not the words that Guillermo uses when he's training vice presidents of communication. It won't be the vernacular that we use in at Carlson or in other training. I think there's going to be certainly some overt disclosure about the relevancy of what we're talking about doing to the workplace and why it's good to really flex these muscles and do these things and the impact that it will have on you. But the comment about vernacular and not sounding like a used car salesman is absolutely something that we are keeping in mind as we talk about educating and rolling out these strategies. So appreciate that question. Dale, totally agree with you. Absolutely something that we need to have every SigEp attend, and hope we're able to fund more of these in the future. I see a question from an anonymous attendee. I don't quite understand what the question is. It says, seems to be deeper rooted than the response. For example, Teak seems to have adapted our strategy better than we have with fewer issues. Why? I'm not sure what strategy we're talking about, and I'm not sure what issues we're referring to. Maybe this is pure ego talking. I'm not aware of anything that Teak does better than us right now. So that may help clarify some of this too. There's a way for us to learn from other groups. I think that's fantastic. The groups that I go to for guidance have been Beta and DU mostly. And we spend time talking to other groups that have adopted a substance-free facility policy. Because that's an annual challenge of getting groups to really commit to that philosophy. Perhaps the anonymous person can follow up with me via email if they feel comfortable doing that. All right, Chad, it looks like we may have exhausted everything.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. Well, thank you everyone again for joining us tonight. Very much appreciate everything that you do to support SigEp. I hope to see many of you in San Antonio in August and sharing with you a lot of good news and celebrating the good work that SigEp does because of your investment of time and resources in our undergraduates. Have a great night. Thank you.